Agile as a methodology or approach in doing things is new in all shapes and forms, like timeline wise, new. Like the guys and girls that were on the forefront of it, the cutting edge, are still breathing. So like they're still around. Okay. So it is like it's a daughter or son of Agile. Okay. Agile being like manufacturing wise, we know Agile from like, from all dimming to the Japanese to like over here and everything about like waste identification and elimination, like the engagement of like the populace of the workers to say like, what are you seeing at the lowest possible level and how do we stay flexible and how do we continuously improve? So if we think about just the generalities of the story of like how Agile in the different formats came to be, it was a bunch of people who were trained and who served in like the old waterfall methodologies. So they're all over the world doing things in the strict, like we have a schedule, this, then this, then this, then this, and this, and this, all the way from here till 6 months down the road. They spent all this time way up front nailing it down. And what they were finding is as they started getting into the things that Jason mentioned, like software development, new product development, things where we know the direction, the big bosses are pumped to get there, but the farther we get away, kind of like weather, the more hazy it gets. And by nailing down, they found, like you could put yourself in this scenario, like if you were the person that was lead the charge to build this new thing down in the distance somewhere here, if you spend all your time doing this nailed down plan, exactly what we're going to do, about a couple weeks or whatever in, you go, oh goodness me, we've tied ourselves to a rock and we're headed to the bottom. Because we realize now, even if we don't want to acknowledge it, the stuff that we are building, X% isn't going to hit the mark, but the big bosses say they want it. The big bosses have committed to their other friends and whatever, and to the market, and we are stuck in this game. What do we do? And so some people said, I got to find a better way. And so they started experimenting and coming up with different strategies. What if we don't plan everything up front? What if we do it this way? What if we pair people together? What if we bring the customer in on the development process? Blah, 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 blah. All these different strategies just to like get out of the hole that they've been living in. Stop being hit by hammers. And so a couple of them came up with some different methodologies, approaches, strategies. And you might say like, they might like extreme programming some people came up with. Some people came up with this thing called like Scrum. Some people came up with this thing called like Crystal. All these DSDM, all these different like acronym-y things. But if you like were to talk to these people, you'd be like, yo, what's your thing about? And they'd be like, dude, I can't plan way up front. I got to bring people together, blah, blah, blah. I got to work it together. Feedback, super important. And we got to think about how the team leads the work. Because, dude, at the end of the day, all these people got together and they said, like, we're doing basically the same thing. You do it a little different. I do a little different, whatever. But is there like a unifying philosophy? And they wrapped themselves around the term of like agile or agility, being flexible. And so at the end of the day, all these people are really about three things. They figured out that the things that like made the thing turn out well was transparency, inspection, and adaption. And we'll cut those up in a sec right now. So transparency is all like, dude, when we were hiding in the shadows, trying to find a way to get to what we wanted to do, even though we knew this and knew that, and everybody knew this, but like weren't able to say it, forget that. Let's just say, call a spade a spade. Let's just deal with it and let's adjust as we go. Let's tell about how we work. Let's look at all this stuff. Let's be open. Let's take that hierarchy that's rigid and like from here down, and let's just slap it together. We're all humans. We're all trying to get it done. Yeah, I respect your position as whatever it is. You respect mine as whatever I am. But we're going to talk to each other like humans. Seems to be the best way to operate. So let's just be transparent about what's going on and just be nice in a nice way. We got to do crazy, aggressive things, but let's just be transparent. Number two, the inspection. There's a lot of things like, let's look at how we're doing the work. Let's look at the actual work. Let's look at the customer's face continuously as we go through. Let's look at all these things and like inspect as we go through. Not necessarily in some dictatorial way where it's like, you didn't do the 17th step in a row. It's like, what's happening? How can we get better? Where are the big problems? Where are the opportunities? All that, if we're clear with what's really happening and we inspect the right stuff in the right order, then we can get into like the master thing is, dude, do we need to shimmy or shake or zig or zag? What do we need to do to get to a better way? Because instead of saying we know exactly at day 0 where we need to be at day 192 and say we have the exact critical path plan, in certain avenues or environments, that is not knowable. So why would we lie to ourselves and say it's knowable? We think we know. And instead of like a big time plan, we'd have like a relative roadmap, build this, then build that, then build this, then build that ish. And we know that the devil is in the details of each build. And if we're not cognizant of how we're doing, we're going to end up in a bad place at the end. So all those dudes and dudettes had the same realization and like we're drawn to it, like to try to find a better way to do things, to limit the pain. And all those people are super cool. Like they're really open about how they got there. Super cool to listen to. And so transparency, inspection, and adaptation is the game. And basically you'll see in the videos and junk like that, that people got together in this thing called, and they built the Agile Manifesto. Now, most manifestos are done by like singular people and it's not good. But this manifesto is like a great thing where it's like a unifying document that talks about the principles and all these different things that they like you should nail it down. We're going to nail it down in the videos. You watch it, see what you think. We'll talk about next week and tomorrow. But reality wise, like there's all these different, like Agile's just an overall philosophy, if you will, agility, if you will. And then underneath it is all these different ways to go about doing it. Like they call it extreme programming, Scrum, Kanban, like disciplined agile in a sense, like DSDM, all these different like acronym-y things. Now, the world has gravitated towards Scrum in a majority sense. Like if you were to just pull a company that's trying to be more agile, operate with agility, you would just pull them out of a hat in a country or world, X percent, 90%, 80, 85, whatever, would be operating a thing called Scrum. The others might be doing, Kanban second in place, and then depending on the environment, a more specialized kind of discipline. So the number one thing that we want to understand is Scrum. Scrum was doing by 2 guys. You'll meet them in the course. All right. And so what we want to understand is that Scrum says we want to be agile, we want to be flexible, and we're going to do it in 2-week little endeavors. We're going to cut the project up and operate in 2-week little sprints, they call them. Okay. So that's what they're doing. They got the idea from a Japanese research paper called the new product development cycle. And so like we can learn about the history there, but they took it and they developed like 2-week little endeavors. Okay. Stacked up against each other. So in a year, Lord willing that the money stays there, we got 26 different 2-week builds with the goal of every time producing something that the customer could potentially use. So we're making Christmas presents throughout the year instead of piling them up at the end of the year. And so when we get back to like transparency, inspection, and adaptation, we live those principles within the 2 weeks every time. And as we emphasize, and this is just Scott rant for a while, and I'll try to ask questions. The goal of the 2 weeks is obviously to produce cool stuff at a small incremental level. That's the number one thing. Make the customer happy. Otherwise, we ain't got anybody to make happy. They leave us, we're hanging out in the corner. The second thing that 2-week little exercise does is it forces us to improve, or gives us the opportunity to improve how we work together as a team. So it's selectively chosen to be a month or less. The most predominant timeline is 2 weeks, but my boys and girls are operating in a week-long sprint right now. They've done 3 weeks before. We usually don't go to 4, just our preferences, and most are 2 weeks. Okay, based on the nature of what we're trying to produce. And so, as we get in there, it's like the way I want you to see these little 2-week junks is like there are humans in there doing work, but we are a a factory. We are like a process. So we look at ourselves both as humans and like as a production process. Okay. So any questions right off the bat before I go deeper? Any questions or thoughts or anything? Anybody go to Scrum Master class or anything? No, cool. All right, sweet. So we talked about the 2-week thing. Now, here's some things that I want you to understand. Like, what are some of the problems that we had? And we'll conversate. In the old days, like, how did we handle requirements? Like in Waterfall, Waterfall exists, it works. But like we have to build a product that we kind of know. Like, how do we handle requirements and scope in Waterfall? Somebody break it. Ambrose, how do we handle the scope in Waterfall?
The scope with an initial meeting with our stakeholders, kind of to get going.
Yeah. With in the Waterfall world, and we build out a baseline made up of what components?
Baseline made up of a component. Well, our deliverables and our goals.
Yeah. And what's the format that we're thinking Waterfall. I'm using it to compare against Agile. When we build it and we build like, hey, we're building a ship. And we build it down into all the components that get down into like the most minor one. Like, what is this structure called? Like in Waterfall?
Work breakdown structure.
Nailed it. Thank you, Andy. So work breakdown structure. We have a work breakdown structure dictionary that provides all the details for every single thing that's going into the bridge, the ship, the whatever we got to make. And we have a scope statement, which is the written out version. Now in Agile, we don't have a WBS because, well, why would we go away from a WBS? Anybody? Like Kyle, why would we not want a WBS in an Agile environment?
Because it's always changing, or always change.
Yeah. So what would be what would we do if we were inventing Agile right now? What would we do instead of a WBS? Just wing it? We'll figure it out. What's next Tuesday? Or what will we do? Instead of that? We're making it up, dude.
Have like more adaptive options.
I can dig it. How would that take format? Like, what form would you use? I like the more adaptive options. Tell me more. You're just making it up, dude. What if you have 4 guys, workers, what would you want them to know? Like if they got a chomping at the bit to do something, what would you want them to know?
And I guess you'd want to know the direction, but it wouldn't be as structured or as cut and dry as the Waterfall work breakdown structure would be.
Yeah. So like, I love that, dude. I didn't even think about that. So like you would have to have somebody define, what are we doing? The vision, the mission, the goals, all that stuff. So we can't throw away those things because we need like a North Star to pull us. So we need that. But like a North Star, you don't want to let the guys and girls just go like, it's north, dude. Just go north and be happy. Like, how do we get them to build junk? Like, what should they build? How do we keep that? What did you call it? What did you call that list? Like, it was a good word. I'll get it in the recording, but
yeah, and now I lost it.
That's all right, dude. You did a great job. So it's like, it's an evolving list, but like, Nick, what would you do? How do you not go as rigid, but how do you not go straight laissez-faire? Like, what's a middle ground that we might use in Agile if we were making it up?
Parameters.
Say it, Becky.
Parameters.
Yeah. And we might go like, somebody might own the vision. Somebody might own the mission and the goal for the powers that be. And they'd be like, hey, think of this person as like Steve Jobs trying to build the iPhone when there has never been an iPhone before. They got a vision. This is why I know there's a need, and they have an undying commitment to like making it a reality from like beginning to end. Now, Steve is there to like pontificate and be like I'm trying to paint a vision. Now, what Steve might do is might say, hey, I'm going to clear this off just to have more room. So like vision, mission, like goals, timelines, all that stuff. That's defined way up there. That's like that North Star that we're shooting toward. And then like there's got to be a person that's owning that. So that person, I want you to think of him as Steve Jobs. I can't draw a mock turtleneck. It kind of looks like that. I think he wore mock turtlenecks. But he's like, dude, we're going to build this iPhone. They're like, what's an iPhone, bro? And we're like, dude, it's going to have everything, blah, 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 whatever he says. So he's a little bit marketer, a little bit, visionary, but he's got to get down into the tactical junk that we're going to build. So this person, if we had a product and somebody who was like on it all the time, leading it from the beginning to end, make up the name. Sarah, what would the name be of that person? If they had a product and they kept it from the beginning to the end and they kept a hold of it in a good way, what would their name be?
Maybe like a product owner or
Yeah. Just stop. Period. Like, do you know that, or you just make that up?
I just made that up.
Beautiful, genius. There you go. See, we can make stuff up and hit the bullseye. So, like, dude, product owner is their official name. That's the Steve Jobs. Okay. They have the vision, they have the mission. And what they do is they come up with a list. Well, first of all, they come up with like a roadmap. We're going to build this and then this chunk and then this chunk and then this little thing and this thing that's like getting toward the North Star. And all this stuff is flexible-ish, right? And so like to distill this down, Steve probably was a lot in his own head, but he's really studying the customers. He's really studying the needs. He understands the market, right? And he understands that the market's the only thing to serve. And so what Steve starts to do is he starts to take the first, what they call artifact. Now that sounds like something like Indiana Jones, but like what it is like something that holds things that like help us go. And so this first artifact is an ordered list of all the things that we could build. That's where we hold our scope. To say it in a colloquial way, he makes a big bucket where he puts all his ideas. Okay? A big bucket, Steve's bucket. And what that bucket's called, well, Sarah, you did such a good job last time. Like if it's called the product something, like what would you call it if it was the big bucket that held all the ideas like to go that potentially work for it? What would you call it?
I would probably just call it the product bucket, but I don't think
Okay, yeah. Bucket's pretty good. Starts with a B. We're going to call it the product backlog. All right. So it's called the product backlog, or as Sarah says, the product bucket, which is good. I'm good with that too. The product backlog. That's everything that could be worked. So unlike the WBS that will be built, if it's on the paper, we're building it in waterfall land. That is getting done. The backlog is we could build these. So every little, we'll call them story or requirement that's on here, these little lines, like, hey, build this button, build this dashboard, build this little chart. We're saying could build these in a sense. So we're putting it there because there's many problems in life, but for creative people and normal people, one of the failures is starting everything at once and nothing getting done. So this helps control for that. And the other one is like not working things that matter. So this product backlog or bucket helps that, because what we want Steve Jobs to do is understand these things, rank them from the coolest in the world in the eyes of the customer to like, kind of smile, to like, I could take it or leave it. So when anybody looks at that backlog, they can say, this is what Steve has lined up to be coolest to not so cool. It's kind of like that candy Pez, like as they go up. Now, Steve's job is to keep that idea bucket thingy, the coulds, bubbling and apparent. So it's not like you build it once and you forget about it. There is somebody out here that we are trying to make smile ear to ear. It's a customer in whatever form we have to deal with. So you're trying to like constantly get more ideas from them, that, and the other thing, your own genius, and fill that list. So that's the product backlog. Now, Patrick, you think Steve Jobs was good at building junk, like put fingers on keys and stuff? You think he was good at that?
No, probably not.
Probably not. He'd probably tell you he's good at that.
Yeah.
But like at the end of the day, like he had that dude, Steve Wozniak. like the smaller, like portly gentleman that would build like I think that was the dude that built stuff with his boys and girls.
Mhm.
And so the first artifact of things that hold things that are critical is called the product backlog. Now, within the 2 weeks, we're going to put like a box around like the time the team has to do the work. That little rectangle looks like a big Snickers bar is supposed to indicate like, hey, 2 weeks worth of time allowed to do work for Uncle Steve. Now, inside of that, we have a little list of the work that goes from what could get done to what has been green lighted to do, will be built, is being built. Now, $1,000 question, Andrew. If the product, this thing's called a sprint. All right. If the product backlog is right here, what do you think they call this thing? The little holder of will do work. What do you think you call that thing?
The will do list,
Yeah.
I guess.
Well,
would
it's
be
not
just
as catchy. Think catchy, dude. So like this one was called
task
product
list?
backlog. It's like a task list, yes. But if this one over here is called the product backlog,
Mhm.
this one would be called the what backlog?
Sprint
Say it.
backlog.
Nailed it, dude. Just like you owned it. Sprint backlog. So for the next 2 weeks, what this little box right here says is for the next 2 weeks, this is all the team's going to build. If there's something that's a fire, whatever, throw it into them. Cool. Yeah. They'll do it. But that's like a exception, not the rule. What we're trying to do is keep the team's eyes on the prize or whatever. So we take a certain number of these things on the sprint back or the product backlog, and we get them onto the team's sprint backlog. And we're going to go through this so many times, you're going to be like, Scott, stop. So this is just the first time. Now, the product owner owns the product backlog. That's like everything that we could do in support of the customers, in support of the vision. The team are the doers. So they make it happen. Steve defines what will be done. That's the backlog requirements. The team sits in here in like the workstation, the factory, the assembly floor, whatever, and they figure out how the heck we're going to make Steve's vision a reality. So that's like, what craftsmen and workers do. So in waterfall, we're very precise. Here are the work instructions, step by step, follow them most times, right? Because we know what we're building. But if we're building an iPad, I imagine they had to figure out a bunch of junk. We've never done this before. Steve wants it. We think it's technically possible. We're going to figure it out while we're flying the plane. So they figure out the how. Now, we've learned some things. We learned 2 names, product owner, and these folks are called developers. They don't have to be computer people. We just call them developers, okay? Or dev team. The dev team should be like, 7, 8-ish, less than 10, something like that. Tight group, like good craftsmen, those kind of things. We've also learned what they call artifacts, holders of things that as they move through. Scrum is called a lightweight framework. So instead of all these rules, all these bells, all these whistles, all these things, it's like, dude, we got a product backlog to hold your ideas, that you order them in. We got a sprint backlog that you keep the stuff that you're going to do. So everybody knows we're doing this. Let's make it transparent. Let's drive it home. Let's drive it home. Those are 2. There's a third. And then the third increment or the third artifact is called an increment, which is the completed good that we did. We took this baby idea, we worked it through the system, we got it to the end to a state of completion. It's been approved and quality checked and all the rest of the jazz, and it's good. So it's a finished deliverable. They call it an increment. We're just exposing you to stuff. I'm going to do it multiple times. So that's the process. Now, we need to talk about how the ideas go from the product backlog to the sprint backlog. And I used to work on ships. Like I think in like systems as far as like water going through a system, like a tank or something like that, like or fuel or whatever. So I see it as like there is energy in the product backlog, potential energy, things we could build. We need to manifest that through the sprint backlog. So we've got to decide what goes through the line, and we need to open up that valve. And if we overfill the sprint backlog, they're not going to get it all done. They're probably not going to get as much done as they could because they're going to be like, I've got all this stuff that they threw on my shoulders. That's not good. So somehow we want to bring in just enough, not too much, not too little, Goldilocks style. And that's really hard to do because we're never going to be precise because yet again, we're dealing with an environment where there's a lot of ambiguity. So let's talk in generalities about how we do that. It's always scary when I erase stuff because I'll erase everything. So, whoopsie. So let's talk about this valve between here and here. So Steve Jobs wants the team to build everything yesterday and make it perfect, but he's relatively reasonable, but not that reasonable. And the team is trying to understand their capabilities and how they work together. Now we have a meeting where we try to lay things out before the sprint to make sure that we don't bring in too much or too little and that the team understands the work. It is a meeting before the sprint. Kaylee, if we had a meeting before the sprint that was trying to figure out what we do and how we do it and stuff like that, what would we call that meeting?
I don't know, like a sprint planning meeting.
Yeah, that's what they called it, dude. Like, yeah, you're nailing it, bro. Either I'm a good teacher, maybe, or you're just killing it. I think it's the second. All right. So, or just leading, or they made it really clear. So this is called a sprint planning meeting. Now, if we have 2 weeks, Kaylee, you did a good job. Keep it going. Sprint, let me write it down. Sprint planning meeting. Now, if the team's getting ready to tie themselves to like doing some work and the product owner wants something, who should be in that meeting to hash these things out, Kaylee? Who should be in that meeting? Don't overthink it.
I assume it should be the product owner and the development team so that they're all on the same page of what needs to be created.
Yes, ma'am. And that's beautiful. So they both saunter up. I drew them all in green, a mistake. That's Steve Jobs. Here's the development team. They're not at odds, but they're, whatever. If you were running the show, how would you want, and I know that you don't know, but how would you want the meeting to go down? What would you want the focus of the meeting to be? Like just talking generalities. Team doesn't have any work. Steve has desires. How would you want the meeting to go down?
I would say in the very early stages, the product owner needs to lay out their vision and what their expectations are so
Yes,
that
ma'am.
the team can then go plan and execute what was talked about in the meeting.
Right. And they like, good. You hang on for 1 second. You're doing fantastically. So like initially Steve probably nails down, hey, the big goal is we're going to change the world by building X, Y, and Z. And they're like, dude, I'm so glad I'm on the team. Cool. So he would get them to understand the vision, like at the beginning and reaffirm as we go, probably understand like relative roadmap. We're going to do this, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do this and double check it with the team. Does that kind of make sense as it evolves? Like as we're thinking about the next 2 weeks, what do you think Steve would do like with these? Like what do you think he'd do like for the next 2 weeks? Like how would he frame it? You're doing a good job. I'm just trying to draw more out of you.
So I don't know if I'm on the right track here, but ultimately all these little sprint blocks need to always circle back to the vision, mission, and goal of, whatever it is the project is.
Yep.
So that way you're not veering off course. So, you do your first block and it aligns with vision, mission, goal, move on to the second one, make sure it's always in alignment with what those 3 items are.
Love it. Fantastic. I like the way you're doing. Always going back to like the vision, mission, all that stuff. So in the sprint planning meeting, the first thing the product owner would come in and say is, here is why this 2-week sprint is valuable in support of like the customer, the vision, the mission, all that junk. Here's why I'm willing to invest 10, 20, 50,000 over the next 2 weeks to build something. So they express like a micro vision about what will be accomplished and why it's worth our time. In a sense, hooking the audience, hooking the developers together. Like, I get it. I get what we're trying to build and why. And there may be some questions back and forth, like, what do you mean? How does this fit? How does this correlate? Why are we doing this versus that? Da, da, da. They're trying to get alignment. So number one thing they're going to talk about is the product owner is going to talk about what the sprint like goal is, why it's valuable. And that goal can start morphing a teensy bit as they start like refining what they're going to actually pull off. It's not like, this is the goal, dictatorial. It's like, it might shimmy or shake a little bit. Now, the first thing is they say, okay, I get the goal. Thank you, Steve. What do you got for us to fill the goal? And Steve might go, oh, dude, I got this thing, this thing, this thing, this thing, maybe this thing. I believe that these 5 things, whatever it is, these stories, they call them user stories, cards, requirements, whatever you call them, these help support the goal. So they also are called product backlog items. So we walk through like these product backlog items. Steve would be like, all right, first thing I need you to do is build this, like the ability for us to hold the back end to hold this many songs in the Apple Music thingy. Okay, tell me more. Like, and then, oh, I need the ability to select this or put it in repeat or whatever, all these little functionalities. If Steve comes in and the ideas are too grandiose, the team's going to go, whoa, dude, like, dude, that's like 8 weeks worth of work, bro. Like, I wish you would have broke it down sooner. So Steve needs to get it broken down to a certain level, but not crazy level. So Steve walks the team through the product backlog items, these things, stories, cards, whatever you call them, explains them. And really what Steve should be doing is getting questions and feedback from the developers. What do you mean by this? How would this work? How would this interface? Would it be cool if it worked this way? How do you see this playing out? What's the real goal? Like, what's the problem we're solving? How do we do it? Because the team's got to figure out how to make it work and how to make it a thing. So they got to understand they're not just cookie cutter following rules. So they're pushing back and forth for understanding. And then like the last thing is like, as they're doing it, they're starting to develop, okay, here's the sprint plan. Here's what we're going at. Okay, Steve, we've thought about it. They start looking at each other. How hard do you think, can we do this? Like, you think that's hard? Do you think it's easy? Like, can you do it? Like, what, how would we go about, like, they start talking all kind of like detailed in the gut stuff. And really they're estimating how much they can commit to. And so they'll eventually go, all right, Steve, here's what we can do. We believe that we can do this first one, the second one. We don't think the third one's the right time to do it because we think it aligns with like, I think what you're going to do next. And it's just not the right time. Respectfully, this one, we can do the fourth one. We can do the fifth one. And honestly, like we should do this one too, because it fits and it's not that hard. Back and forth discussions. Why not? When? Okay, you're sure you can do it? All that stuff. What help do you need, etc. Eventually the product owner goes, okay, cool. Make it so. We lock down the sprint goal. We lock down the sprint plan. The team kind of knows like in the next couple of days, day-ish, what they're going to do. Okay, you're going to do this. I'm going to do this. We're going to start this. And they start rolling. And then what happens is the team metaphorically opens up this valve, goes through the line, grabs the stories. They make a distinction to say the team selects the work. Because if you're going to tie yourself to a rock, you better be able to pick the rock you tie yourself to. So they pick the work. They bring it over here. Boom, 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 boom. We commit to you, Mr. Steve, that we will deliver within 2 weeks those 5 things, most likely. And so at that point, like the things are off the backlog. I know I left one thing that was there. Give me a second. I lost my blue marker. And then all these other things like that candy, you get it, like kids get it, like whatever it is, Easter or whatever, Pez, all the other ones pull up. And then Steve realizes, I got to go back and refine the backlog, clean it up. They used to call it grooming, but that's creepy. Like the backlog, they cleaned it up to get it ready for the next 2 weeks. And the reason why he feels comfortable, Steve Jobs, the product owner, going back and doing that is because through the discussions that we had, he can look in their eyes and go, I feel comfortable that the developers are going to do the job. They'll figure it out on their own. They're self-managing, self-organizing, all those words. They're going to run themselves. They know I got a cell phone. Hell, we're building a cell phone. They can call me on it, and if I need it. So they go off and they start running. He goes back and starts looking at here by talking to this dude, by talking to the market, by talking to Shaman, whoever Steve gets the ideas from. And the team goes off and runs. Now, does it feel weird that the team runs themselves? Brian, you worried about that? Like chickens and roosts and I don't know what the animal metaphor is, but like them run themselves. Real life talk. Are you worried? You can say yes or no. I'm cool with either, or maybe. You're on mute or not, but I can't hear you. While he's working on that, Becky, are you worried about the team? They're on their own. They don't have a boss. Are we worried?
I would be a little worried.
Yeah, what are you worried about? I'm worried too. What are you worried about?
I'm worried how their pieces are going to integrate together, and if they're thinking about that as they've taken their chunk.
Yeah. Are you sure that this guy's going to play with this lady and this guy is going to share with this person? Are they going to work together? Or are they going to be like artists? I'll be over. I'll see you in 2 weeks. I'll see you in 2 weeks. I'll see you in 2 weeks. I'm going to go drink coffee and do my own thing. Like, so like they could not play together. They could not communicate together. They could not collaborate. They could, because like most individuals, like historically have been programmed to like go to a boss for better or worse, get direction. There's like a crutch there. But if we're asking the team to be self-organized, self-managing, and work through conflict on their own and call when you need it, that creates risk.
Yeah.
And so obviously Scrum works most times, sometimes. If you had to get these people up to speed, like in operating on their own, what could we do for it? Like, Nick, what could we do for these people other than like pray? What could we do for them?
We could have some kind of touch point meeting during the sprint just to make sure, hey, are you guys getting along? Are we making any progress? And are we actually moving towards a goal?
Who do you want to do that?
I feel like there should be someone between the product owner and the development team to do it, but
what would you call that person? What would you call them?
A project manager.
A project manager, in a sense.
Sprint manager.
And then, what's that? Scrum manager?
Scrum or sprint manager, yeah.
Okay, we're close. So like, let's first of all talk like traditional project managers in Waterfall wear like 70,000 hats, right? Hey, I'll plan the work. I'll manage the work. I'll interface with the customers, interface with the big bosses. I'll check the work. I'll do like the fingers, like their responsibilities are more fingers than I got and toes. What we want this dude or dudette to do is help everybody be better, to say it in a really simple way. And so the name we use for him is called Scrum Master, or they use, and we use as well. So Scrum is the methodology, cool. Master, I don't know, whatever. They're like the coach, the facilitator, the guider, the conscience, the tough love, the whatever the opposite of tough love is, like that kind of person. So they are not the person that assigns work. They are not someone that people answer to in the strict of like, you work for me sense. They are there to observe, interact, coach, guide, help, call in help break down rocks, all those things. So by not having like you answer to me, I check things off, it allows them the freedom to do all those things I just mentioned. Now, the job initially, as we start thinking about it, goes like, dude, this is great, bro. All I got to do is walk around, talk to people, drink coffee, smoke cigarettes, stuff like that. That's great. But in reality, it gets real hard about like, dude, how do I observe, help, coach these developers? And also, how do I observe, help, coach Steve Jobs? Good luck there, bro. And how do I observe, coach, whatever, the whole like company environment? Because that's their job, is to like guide people to follow the Scrum process. Meaning like, no. Y'all need to have a sprint planning meeting. Like, it's important. I know you feel like you don't need it because you already know what you want. But no. It's important you do it. Go, come on. You talk to this dude. Come on. Building them up in the process. Additionally, coaching them to like get that confidence, get those skills, get those things that they need. Because like the developers got to work together. Product owner might not be that comfortable building backlogs, talking to the right people, doing all that stuff. So it's like universal coach, guide, or conscience, whatever. That's the third role. There are 3 jobs, 3 responsibilities I want you to think of them as. Product owner, Steve Jobs. Developers, Wozniak, and the boys and girls that build stuff. Scrum Master, Yoda or Jiminy Cricket or anybody else that's green. All right. Maybe not green, but like a coach, guide, or that kind of person. Make everybody better. Keep them from, so the product owner can feel comfortable that like, hey, the Scrum Master's watching the boys and girls in a good way. Make sure they don't run the street. Help them out. And the developer's like, dude, they got my back. That if I need something, I'm going to call anybody I can, but if I need somebody, we're not on our own, I can call a Scrum Master. They'll help us out. That's the dynamic. I'm well aware that this looks like wild, crazy town drawing, but it's cool. So team runs themselves. They got the Scrum Master to kind of go. How would you, let's pick a random name. Let's go. Who? Cecilia. Should there be rules on how the team meet and interact? Would you want them to just be like, y'all just end up at the end with a magic present, with a Christmas present? Or would you want them to do something as they go through, like a rhythm for them working? What would you recommend for those folks?
It's sounding good that you said, like, yeah, I would do it.
A rhythm?
Yeah.
I could do what rhythm? Every week, every hour, every day, every couple days? Like, when would you want them to get together?
Well, this is a 2-week time frame, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe twice. Can they meet twice? Is that sufficient enough?
But you're the boss. So like what, every Friday? Friday and then Friday. Okay.
Yeah.
Got any other, okay. What Andy or Andy, what would be your vote? How often should the team get together?
I was thinking every 2 or 3 days.
2 or 3. Oh, so we went from an hour, or no, I mean, let's not go hour. Hour's wrong. Okay. A week. We went down to 2 or 3 days. John, you want to go 2, 3 days? You want to go 4 days? You want to go, where you want to go? How often should they meet?
Every single day.
Every single day. All right. All
Yeah.
right. So it's every single day. How long, John, would you want them to meet for?
5-10 minutes at most.
5-10 minutes. They call it 15. All right. So cool. They say get together every day for 15 minutes. So if we think about the 2 weeks, well, the first day, like we're doing this sprint planning sprint planning in the morning, 2 hours ish, whatever, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever. And then every day they're going to I'm going to screw this up. Like every day they're going to, let me check another color. We're going to go pink. Every day they're going to meet for 15 minutes. Now, the purpose of this, and as I draw this out, it kind of looks like a football field. Kind of, right? Like there's like a beginning, like this is where we're trying to go. We're trying to get to the end zone and deliver like the present. And like every day is like a choo, like a line marker, or whatever, yard marker. Okay, so every single day, the team gets together. The Scrum Master can be there to help guide and whatever, facilitate the teensy bit, but it's the meeting for the team, by the team. That's what you're trying to get the team up to. They run the work, they collaborate, they do all that stuff. That's the euphoric state that we're trying to drive them to, empower them to. Product owner can show up, not required, but the team is there, just like in a football game, to inspect what they've done, collaborate. Hey, this is where I am, this is where you are. See where the progress is in a relation to like where we need to be. And just like a football game, like if you played the first play and the quarterback got sacked and lost a bunch of yards, the next play would be affected. Correct? Be like, oh God, we just lost 8 yards. We ain't running it up the middle. We're doing something different. Same thing with the team. Get together for 15 minutes at an agreed upon time. The normal questions that the team goes through as like starter level are like, this is what I, as developer A, did accomplish yesterday. So everybody knows, oh, okay, you got that done? Sweet. Or I'm stuck, whatever, I didn't get done. Number 2, this is what I'm trying to accomplish in the next 24 hours. So like now, like today is what I'm trying to do. And then number 3 is, here is the impediments, rocks, blockers, things that are holding me back. This is what I'm having issues with. Get transparency, get them out, right? Here's our issues, impediments, whatever. And so this meeting is not red, yellow, green, I'm good, you're good, okay, bye-bye. Not a worthless status meeting. No siree dee. What we want is this meeting to be, okay, I understand where you are, I understand where I am, we're adjusting. Okay, I'm going to give you that thing tomorrow. I'm having issues. Anybody done that before? What we do not want to do is go war story, because we only got 15 minutes. So we want to hit the key points. Hey, I understand. We're collaborating. We're adjusting. Hey, look, daily Scrum, world's most impactful PMP simulator. It's in 5 minutes. I'm going to be late. And so I'm not going to go today. Okay. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do. So the team can adjust and be aligned. Now, if they need help, they're yanking on the Scrum Master. And then also if they have issues, it would be like, Kyle, you're having an issue. Becky, you said you could help. And Sarah, hey, y'all talk about it after the session and do whatever you got to do to figure it out. Call in the forces if you need them. But we're not going to eat up everybody else's time watching you guys problem solve. It's a waste of time. And so that's what we do every day, marching ourselves as we get closer and closer to the end of the goal. And like the thing that we need to think about, as I just pontificate and I apologize, is like, as we get closer and closer to like the time's up, like a football game, like our hastiness of like, what are we going to do to pull off something? Because our goal is to get stuff to a completed state. Let me ask you a question. Sarah, would you rather have 10 things 75% done or 6 things completely done?
I would rather have 6 things completely done.
So that's our goal. Yes, ma'am. We're not being lazy, but like, let's get stuff to done. And when you say done, what do you mean? I know I'm just opening doors. What do you mean, Sarah? Like, what does done mean to you? Like when work is done?
No loose ends. Remove it from the to-do list. Don't think about it anymore.
Yes, ma'am. 100%. They call that meeting the definition of done. That's the formally accepted and agreed upon standard of like, when I say done, when Sarah says done, when Andy, Kyle, Cecilia, Becky, Jason, Patrick, whomever says done, it's the same checklist in our mind. All the works, and you can define, either the organization defines this or the team says, if they ain't defining it, we're damn sure defining it, because I'm tired of getting to the end, having things done, or that guy getting done and it not matching. So it could be all the work is completed on a ticket or card or whatever. It's been fully QA'd or tested in whatever environment we need to be. It's been documented, because like if we have to put release notes or put notes in the system or whatever, it's been shown to the product owner and approved, and anything else we can think of. But those are 4 good ones. And so when we all go like, yo, I'm done, you're like, just what you said, Sarah. No lingering work. No like, oh yeah, we'll do the documentation. Oh, we'll do the testing later. No. That ain't done. So we're getting, and they call that definition of done. And so the second or the third meeting. So first meeting is sprint planning. Second meeting, daily Scrum. Oh, that's what they call this. Daily Scrum. That's what they call it. Sorry. The third meeting, where we take those things, the 6 things that we finished, to a level of completeness, which we call the definition of done. Check. Look at that last check with the big boss, the product owner signing it off. We bring those to the table. Steve Jobs shows up. The team shows up. The Scrum Master shows up. This guy or the customer shows up. If it's the right time, probably good, not a bad idea. Stakeholders at appropriate level show up. And the team goes, I built you this cup. It's DONE, done. Take it for a ride. Do you like it? Feel it, touch it, and do that stuff. Okay? The inspection is on the product at that point. Now, Kaylee, why might it be important to allow the product owner to put their hands on it, to drink from the cup, to do whatever, and not just say, we got it done, ship it to the customer. Why is that incremental stage of having the product owner touch it, feel it, drink out of it important?
To make sure it meets the standard that they set when they had that initial meeting, and that it meets vision, mission, goal of what they wanted the product to be.
Oh yeah, like, because those are a teensy bit different, right? Like, does it do? Is it done right? And does it do what I wanted to do in the way I wanted to do it? Like, and I had this, Steve Jobs had this vision that when I pull it up this way, because Kaylee, have you ever asked for something and got it and go like, well, it's not exact. It's now that I feel it or touch it or see it or whatever, it's not exactly. Now I realize something. Have you ever had that kind of realization with anything?
Yeah, I'm sure I have. I just can't think of any.
Yeah, maybe you order
examples
something
right
from
now,
like
yeah.
Amazon or a store and you're like, oh, that looks great on the mannequin or whatever. And you get it and you're like, I just don't like the way it feels, or like blah, 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 blah. So when Steve Jobs asked for something, yeah, it can work. But what we want to do is say, like, does it work and solve the problem that you like and you do, or something like that? Yeah, those kind of things. And so from there, Steve might look at it and go like, oh, it's even better than I even thought about. Dude, let's get ready to ship it to the people that matter, the increment. And Steve might come up with like 73 ideas from it. Now that I can see it in practice, now the world opens up. Like, I recently found out, like, I was like, what's this AI junk about? And I started Googling like coffee fueled at night, like AI solution for this. Dude, I started finding all this junk out there. Dude, like, there's things that like cut up videos for you and transcribe. It's amazing. And as soon as I started seeing, I was like, bloom, 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 bloom. Ideas going in the backlog. Same thing with your product owner or Steve Jobs or the customer. You're getting that inspection of the product to feed back into the backlog, new stuff that might go up to the top of the list or in the middle or wherever. And then the good stuff can go here once it's approved. So that's the cycle. The third meeting is called a sprint review meeting. Sprint review. Okay. So I will clean this up. I'm not done, but I will clean it up many a times over so it doesn't look like craziness, psychedelic Scrum. All right. So the third meeting is called the sprint review. And that's like the conveyor belt of progress. Starts from like potential energy of what we could build. Through the sprint planning meeting, we get clarity on what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we're going to do it from the biggest sense. The team brings in a chunk of work, right? Hey, we are going to get this done. They own it. They commit to it. They don't get off direction. They just work on that, nothing else. The team works it through their paces, checking, adjusting, like bobbing, weaving as they run down the field. They get as much as humanly done to the level of completeness called the definition of done. They put it in front of the product owner, the customer, the stakeholders, or whatever, to get the good or bad news, reading faces, bodies, actions, all that junk, facilitating the heck out of it to try to get like a feedback loop going, product owner as well. Then if it's a double approved, it becomes an increment. It like gets its wings. And then it becomes, the increment's also known as, like, the definition is a potentially shippable piece of work. Meaning, if the product owner deemed it the correct time, strategically or otherwise, they could shoot it out to the customer, ain't no big deal. Or they could pack up a bunch of them over a couple sprints, wrap them together, call it a release, and shoot it out strategically at a time. Kind of like your phone. When they pump out, hey, we got this. They have release notes if you really want to get nerdy about it and read it. Like, they have a bunch of, hey, we made these feature enhancements and these additions and these new features and whatever, bloop, and they pump it out in chunks. I bet you Apple's pumping junk out every single, probably in the, I don't know, the minutes, right? Ideas and, feature upgrades and all these things, but they make decisions on when to drop them. Either hot pushing them, hot fix them, or putting them in there like right off the bat. So that's it. Now, there is one more meeting, because we all understand that like the developers have to improve themselves as a unit, and people come in and come out and all that thing. And so like we're constantly trying to get ourselves better, Tuckman ladder style. The Scrum Master's trying to work with the product owner too. Shoot, the Scrum Master's trying to improve their ability to get other people to be good at what they're good at. And so what Scrum does that's pretty cool is they embed continuous improvement in the cycle. So it ain't at the end of the project. Every 2 weeks, we have a meeting. And it's kind of like we all walk up into like a giant conference room and we watch the game tape. I did a terrible draw in a room. And we all sit in there, the product owner, the team, that's it, and the Scrum Master, the team, and the Scrum Master. And we just like central like table, like circular in a sense. We put our cards on the table. And we say, how'd it go? Last 2 weeks. How did we work together? What went really well? What issues did we have? We're trying to, first of all, create open, honest communication between the parties. And we're trying to really understand from each's level how they think it went and where the opportunities, the bells and whistles of goodness are. What can we focus on? This is a facilitator, Scrum Master trying to draw it out of people. And then as we do that, we try to lay the cards on the table and we try to find one or two things that we can actually go and attack in a positive way to make the world a teensy bit better next time. Because we're going to run the experiment, the game again. Like as soon as we leave the meeting, take a teensy break. Let's go into sprint planning. And then we start it again every 2 weeks. So this last meeting is called a sprint. But everybody's been nailing it so well. Patrick, what would you call this meeting if we're looking back with a certain eye toward it? What would you call it? A sprint? Something? What would you call it?
Recap. I don't know.
Dude, it starts with an R. You guys are like straight on it. They call it our sprint retrospective, which is kind of like a recap. Retro, like bell bottoms, they're coming back. Retrospective, like, I don't know. Spective makes me think of like looking at something. I'm not good at English, previously stated. So sprint retrospective. Yo, what happened over the last 2 weeks? What are we seeing? Take a break, slow the brain down, breathe. Let's talk. And let's try to get better again. So I'll take a picture of this. Not that it's going to help anybody, but I'm going to erase it. And I'm going to draw this picture 1,000 million times. So I don't know where. Hold on. Give me a second. There we go. And then what we want to understand is if we were to simplify it down, we could simplify it down into 3, 5, and 3. All right. If I can find a pencil. 3, 5, trace. 3, I'm going to call them responsibilities. All right. They call them roles. I defer to the masters, but I want you to think of them as responsibilities. 5, we'll call them meetings. 3, artifacts, which are either the things we make or the things that keep us relatively organized. Artifacts. So, uno, doso, treso. Kaylee, give me one or all of the roles and responsibilities, por favor. Who are the people that play in the game? Who are the people in your neighborhood?
So you're talking about, I think you're talking about like the product owner, the Scrum Master, and the developers.
That's it.
Okay.
So you nailed it. Scrum Master and the development team of the developers. Yes. That's awesome. So, dude, just think about what you just did. Do you know anything about product owner, Scrum Master, developers before you came here? Kaylee?
I mean, my team doesn't use those words for like what we call ourselves, but we mostly work in like an agile environment. So.
Oh, sweet. So now we got words and stuff and we can start thinking about it. Awesome. I can dig it. Sarah, good job. What are the first meeting, I'll take that one, is like the overall like holder for everything, like the 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, however we define it, like the holder for everything. And that's called the overall sprint. Okay. Now I took the easy one. You take any of the other ones. What are the other meetings that we said?
The planning meeting for
And
the
what's that called?
sprint planning meeting
Keep it rolling.
and the daily meetings.
What's that one called?
I don't remember
Come on.
the daily.
This whole methodology is called what?
Agile.
A little bit lower.
Oh,
What are, it starts with an S, ends with the
oh, the Scrum.
Yeah, daily Scrum, they call it.
Got it.
And then the fourth, so they got the sprints like the big holder. The sprint planning is like where we're getting planning the next 2 weeks or whatever. Daily Scrum is where the dudes and dudettes, the workers, are working together and strategizing down the field. At the end of the sprint, what do we call that one?
The sprint review.
Nailed it. What's the last? The look back to get better and stuff.
Retrospective.
Killing it. Man, I wish they had shorter words. If I had to scrabble. All right, killing it. Now we got let's go, Brian. 3 artifacts, things that keep us organized or that we produce. Any idea? Big buckets, if you want to get all fancy with it. Big bucket, little bucket, Christmas present. We're having a problem with the audio, dude. Nick, go, dude. Nick, what's big bucket, little buck, Christmas present? What are they called?
The project backlog, the sprint
Product
backlog,
backlog, no big deal. Product backlog, cool. Keep going.
sprint backlog,
Killing it.
and the iteration or
Close. Keep trying. In
increment.
nailed it, dude. So that's like the Christmas present that we make, little bits. This is like the little thing and all the work that we will do. And this is the big bucket of things that we could do. And that's an emergent list, like throw it on there, that stuff. So this is like the core components of Scrum. And when we're talking about Agile and like the course and stuff, the preponderance of questions on the exam and stuff will be asking you about Scrum methodologies. Methodology, singular.